Bonjour. Walker's Point and the Third Ward have always had a little bit of a sibling rivalry, and the Third Ward has always kind of been ahead, gathering most of the attention being the favorite child. Which frankly makes a lot of sense. The Third Ward has always gotten a lot of attention for attracting high-end brands like State and Liberty or Lululemon, whereas Walker's Point has had a history of, hey, in the 70s and 90s, a bunch of artists move into abandoned industrial buildings, and so now Walker's Point is known to be the industrial creative core of Milwaukee. But right now we're having some data come in that is actually putting Walker's Point on the map. The retail vacancy in Walker's Point is 9,805 square feet. 2/3 of that is actually concentrated in 2 buildings that are off the prime retail corridor in Walker's Point, which is First Street and National Avenue to an extent. So what that means is if you want prime storefront space in Walker's Point, you've got basically no options. In fact, I think Walker's Point has more options for parking than it does for prime retail space. The Third Ward, on the other hand, has 39,798 square feet of retail space available. So it's got 4 times the vacancy of Walker's Point. So finally, Walker's Point is actually punching way ahead of its weight class in a competition between it and the Third Ward. Now granted, Walker's Point has not yet completely obliterated the Third Ward. There is still a 32.82% rent difference between the two, which is Milwaukee's version of a duty-free area. The average rent in Walker's Point is $16.13 per square foot plus triple net, compared to the Third Ward's $24.01 per square foot plus triple net. But what's interesting is the momentum piece. Right now, Walker's Point has very tight availability with under 10,000 square feet of retail available, and it is still the second highest submarket in the urban core as far as rents go, right behind the Third Ward, breathing on its back. Now, to counteract that rent difference and punch back, Walker's Point is having a lot of new developments come in. Right now, we are tracking 10 new developments going on in Walker's Point compared to only 6 in the Third Ward. So Walker's Point has almost double the developments of the Third Ward. The nice thing about all these new developments going on is that it helps change the perception that Walker's Point is older industrial buildings, whereas the Third Ward is all nice and posh and boutique-y. If right now roughly 1/3 of Walker's Point was built after the year 2000, whereas roughly half of the Third Ward was built after the year 2000. But with all that new development, it is becoming tighter and tighter and the gap is closing. And with that development, there's a couple of interesting projects to pay attention to. Number one is the 2.6-mile reconstruction of National Avenue that's going to help calm down traffic significantly. The other piece to look at is the 4,600-foot Riverwalk extension that's going to go through Walker's Point and the Harbor District. Now, will it directly put people into Walker's Point? No, but it does help bring people over the bridge and a lot more foot traffic from the Third Ward into Walker's Point. On top of that, Walker's Point has had a lot more momentum than the Third Ward. So since COVID 2020, the Third Ward has on average grown 1.99% per year, whereas Walker's Point has averaged a growth rate of 5.06% per year. So Walker's Point is growing roughly 2.5 times faster than the Third Ward. Right now, take a look at the situation. Walker's Point has very limited vacancy, which is going to push rents up. It is getting hundreds of millions of dollars of investment dollars poured into it with either the Riverwalk extension or private new buildings being built. It has been growing significantly faster than the Third Ward. So consider this. What's going to happen is Walker's Point is coming into a little bit of a comeback season where it might start challenging the Third Ward's dominance in the Milwaukee urban core for being the best retail corridor, best retail trade area. And so Walker's Point is transitioning from being the gritty underdog into the next wave core neighborhood.